It's the first time in the history of smartphones that a company has managed to do this. And for me, it's both a privilege and a responsibility. Be the first Spanish-speaking tech analyst on YouTube to give a detailed review and push it to the limit with tough tests. As you'll see later, it's the Tank brand. They've worked for years on this device under the codename Project X, and today it's finally coming to light. And they've created the first smartphone in history to house the world's most powerful laser projector inside, reaching native full high-definition resolution and 220 lumens for the first time. All this projection power wouldn't have been possible without two large fans, probably the biggest ever in a smartphone, on both sides of the device. But that's not all. This beast also has a battery of almost 20,000 mAh, which charges from 0 to 100 in just 70 minutes. Ultra powerful. 1,200 lumen flashlight with night vision sensors, dust and water protection, and military-grade IP69 rating. And you can even project a movie in the depths of a river. You'll see it better in a moment. Without a doubt, this is a smartphone that's truly different from what we're used to, one that breaks the mold and dares to innovate. Although I'm afraid this also gives it some negative points to keep in mind, as you'll see next. As you've seen, the unboxing is basically the same as other Tank models I've reviewed here. Key highlights are the included 120W charger and an extra screen protector, along with the one already applied. But here you can see the Tank X in all its glory. As for the design, it's similar to previous versions, made entirely of metal, rubber, and ultra-resistant glass. It really feels unbreakable. Thanks for including jack to audio 3.5 USB Type-C 2.0 and a microphone as connections. On the other side, alternating between rubber and metal, is the unlock button with a fingerprint sensor. It wobbles a bit, but the travel is good. However, it's a bit too low for my taste. You'll see it better later because of this big fan. A double fan is on the other side, as you'll see, and on the top. This is where the highlight of this very different smartphone is. This is what changes absolutely everything. And before I show you the projector, check out the card slot. You can easily take it out with your fingernail, and you can put in 2 SIM cards and a micro SD of up to 2 terabytes of capacity. It also features an infrared sensor for channel changing and an upgraded sensor for laser projector positioning. And here is the most powerful projector ever housed in a smartphone in history. You'll see it better later in the section where I talk specifically about this great projector. But here, on the other side, you have the buttons. Take a look. Also, these edges help you grip this smartphone, which honestly feels too heavy and bulky, but those edges make it feel a bit more ergonomic. It also features another fan and 2 frame-level customizable buttons. One red. This is how it feels in hand, which is likely one of its biggest drawbacks. And it weighs 750 grams. Did you hear that right? So now it's time to see what this beast, the Tank X, is like. And the first thing we're going to look at before we get to the projector is its screen. In-plane switching technology with up to 750 nits of brightness. It's highly customizable, which I like. It has a 6.7 8-inch full high-definition display with up to a 120 Hz refresh rate. Given its large battery, I suggest keeping it at 120 Hz since battery life difference is minimal. Let's see, this smartphone is indestructible. Look at how it works with the screen completely wet. Here I also tested an iPhone 17 Pro Max, and when the screen was wet, the controller went crazy. Meanwhile, the Tank X is 3 or 4 times cheaper than the iPhone, and its screen works perfectly even when wet. It can stream YouTube in 4K high dynamic range at 60 FPS without issues. However, the screen's technology and the easily dirtied pre-installed protector result in poor viewing angles. It's clearly behind competitors in organic light-emitting diode screens and higher brightness. Even so, obviously the strength of this Tank X smartphone is something else, and that's its built-in laser projector. It's been many years since Tank released its first smartphone, with a projector. Most smartphones with a built-in laser projector work at around 420p, and there are even some that work at 720p. But this is the first to offer native full high-definition resolution. Also, it offers exceptionally high brightness for a smartphone, 220 lumens, a first in the industry. Activate night mode to keep the fan at a steady speed and reduce the brightness. The projection, in fact, at maximum brightness, you would get up to 5 hours of continuous projection. And with the lowest brightness, you would get up to 6 hours of projection. But also, this version adds a manual tool to make the text sharper or less sharp. And this helps the automatic features that this laser projector already has by itself. But listen to this. Here's how the two most powerful smartphone fans would sound, which in turn also integrates the most powerful laser projector. In other versions, both brightness and sharpness have improved. The more powerful fans provide better cooling. Obviously, it's a lot of projection power, and this needs to be cooled somehow. The projection also feels more consistent. Check out this point. This is how it looks in daylight. In the shade, it looks great. This has improved a lot over previous versions, thanks to the upgrades I mentioned. So in the shade, you can enjoy its content. But, of course, when you really enjoy this type of projector is in the dark, at night, when there's hardly any light. And I assure you, being able to see your Instagram on a screen up to 100 inches is absolutely amazing. In this recording, you'll notice some colored and sometimes black stripes. That's an issue with the recording when trying to record the projection on video. This laser, but in reality, those stripes aren't visible, so just ignore them. And this is what happens when you put this Tank X while it's playing a movie on its laser projector inside a river. And it's absolutely nothing. It's designed for exactly this. It's extremely tough, and it also has a neat little trick that I'll show you next to drain the water using infrasound. I'll give you a size comparison to show the projection scale. Here it is compared to a sofa, and now with a 28-inch monitor, and it can actually be expanded up to 100 inches. I recommend, though, that you put it on some kind of stand, for example. You don't need to buy one. As you can see, I have it set on a book, although they do sell stands as well. And thanks to its sensors, which set the correct way it should be viewed, this projection adjusts to any surface, and I love that. There are over 100 inches here, covering all 4 walls with this ultra-wide angle. The optimal size is 100 inches. Look, inches, walls. But something fundamental for this projector to feel better accompanied is its audio. And this Tank X not only has a 3.5 audio jack, which is appreciated, as I mentioned at the beginning, but it also has a speaker that, even though it's just one, is very powerful. As you will hear, thank you. This obviously means you don't need to connect it to any speaker via Bluetooth or 3.5 audio jack auxiliary mode. Still, there's obviously the option to do so if you want. And now let's talk about the hardware and software of this X. And besides the weight, this is one of the most annoying negative points. That's because the unlock button is set very low to make room for the big fan. If you have small hands, you won't notice it as much, but in my case, it's pretty uncomfortable. If you have small hands, no, it's quite uncomfortable. Yeah, no problem at all with this 4 nanometer processor. Also, as I said, all the content can be projected even if the screen is off. It keeps projecting. As for Wi-Fi and data, Bluetooth 5.4, even dual-band global positioning system, everything has worked perfectly for me, and this processor easily handles gaming, right? It's clearly the top tier option for the highest frames per second, but it's more than enough. What I like most is that everything centers on this. You can project any game you want and, for example, connect a controller to this smartphone's Bluetooth and play on a 100-inch screen any game you want that you can download on Android. And this point, above all, is really going to appeal to gamers. And are you also seeing that it has this extremely powerful 1200 lumen flashlight? In addition, it has 2 other emergency warning lights, which can be set to red or blue, or you can use both intermittently. And you already know it's a tank. Do you know what a tank is? You can include certain tools that other smartphones don't have, like this one, for draining water even if you put it in the river and the speakers get clogged. In this case, the big speaker it has on the back, don't worry, because you can drain it using infrasound. And after a few seconds, you'll be able to hear it again, as if it had never been submerged in water. Now let's talk about the 17,600 mAh battery. That's impressive, and it includes fast charging with a charger. Thank you. 120 watts. You can turn on the fan while it's charging, which is always healthier for the battery. I wish it had an option to limit charging to, say, 80%. If you don't use the projector, it easily lasts a week. Because here, as I already mentioned to you, what uses up the most power without a doubt is this big and powerful projector. But let's move on to a section that I didn't like very much and that I'm going to go through pretty quickly, and that's the cameras. A 50 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel 3x telephoto lens, and a 50 megapixel front camera. In addition to a 64 megapixel night mode camera that you'll see next, and which I think is the one I like the most. It doesn't have high dynamic range, and the digital zoom goes up to 20x. Also, in the professional mode, you can set an exposure time as short as 0.3 seconds, and these are the results. As you can see, some of the photos are decent, especially if there's plenty of light, but obviously, who would buy this tank? Tank X isn't meant for getting the most out of its cameras. Now let's move on to regular video recording. How does this Tank X perform? Tank X video? Here's how its stabilization and microphones would perform. With this resolution 1080p, that is, full high definition at 30 frames per second, and this would be its maximum resolution, 4K at 30 frames per second. This is how it appears in total darkness with no trace of light. But thanks to this infrared lens, look how well you can see absolutely everything. In fact, I can record video with this Tank X. This is how it would look. Also, notice the sharpness. How do the letters look with this embossing? I'm telling you, there's absolutely no light. And the time has come to reveal the price of this Tank X, the smartphone with the most powerful projector in the history of smartphones. Well, here you have it, especially considering the projector they put in, the memory, the durability, the big battery, and the versatility it gives you. Getting a phone like this with stock Android 15 is a great deal for the price. Of course, it's a niche device. Also, those 750 grams aren't affordable for everyone. But from my point of view, since I'm used to analyzing all kinds of smartphones, for a company to innovate like this, even with those negative points, let's say that's the price to pay for everything they've packed inside, I think this company Tank deserves all my respect. If you're looking for a smartphone with unique, incredible features, and simply the most powerful smartphone with an integrated projector in history, here it is, Tank X. I just hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you haven't already and leave me a like, so I can keep connecting the most incredible nature videos with the newest, most innovative, and never before seen technology on YouTube. And now, I'll see you in the next video. Take care and see you soon.